how are then causes and effects connected? What is causation, or what is it that makes a cause being a cause? There are two main answers to this question. The first is probability raising, that a cause is something that raises the probability of an effect. So let's say I throw a rock at the window, then me throwing that rock at the window is the cause of it breaking, because throwing the rock at the window raises the probability of the effect that the window will break. An alternative answer is process linkage, and people who hold that view say that the cause is a physical process that links cause and effect. So it's either a transfer of energy or momentum, or some physical interaction, the laws of nature, or particles moving in a field, or something like that. Different views then on how more precisely to describe it, but there is this physical link between the cause and the effect. There seems to be cases we would think of as causation that doesn't fit into either of these views. So here's a problem for answer number one. It seems that something can raise the probability of an effect without being a cause. Let's say that John is about to throw a rock at the window, but Bob is holding his rock, waiting to see what happens. And Bob has a lot of experience with breaking windows, and he thinks if John doesn't break the window, then I will. So the fact that Bob is holding his rock and thinking like that raises the probability that the window should break. And still, if John throws the rock at the window and it breaks, we would like to say that it's John throwing the rock that is the cause of the window breaking, and not Bob holding a rock, even if Bob holding this rock, looking at the situation, raises the probability of the effect. A problem for answer number two is that it seems that something can be a cause without there being any physical link between the cause and the effect. Let's imagine this time that John is seeing someone has rigged a catapult with a rock ready to break a window, and he goes over and pulls the lever, releasing a feather, throwing the rock and breaking the window. In this case, we would like to say that John is the cause of the window breaking. But since he just removes this pin and all the energy is stored in the feather that or in the spring that sends the rock off, we can't say that there's this physical. There isn't a physical quantity being transferred from John over to the window, so the example doesn't fit. And there are many other examples where it seems that we will say that, for instance, the cold weather last autumn caused the prices of oranges to rise this year, and it's difficult to see that there should be this physical quantity moving from the temperature last year to the prices of oranges this year, and many other examples. So Jonathan Schaffer, a philosopher who has worked a lot with this, says that we can find exceptions to all these views. So he concludes that causation is a mysterious thing that we don't understand. But here's a theory then of how to understand causation that I suggest. I've said in previous videos that there are these values being actualized in the field, and we see different patterns that we think of as states of affairs, as a tree or a chair or walking to the cinema, etc. And we see that some of these patterns, some of these states of affairs, are often followed by another state of affairs. It seems to be some regular connection between them, which makes us then think that there must be this nomological or lawful connection. It's not just a random coincidence when it happens all the time in the same way. So we think that there must be, sometimes we have one state of affairs first and then another, and we think that there's a lawful connection, and so we call the first one a cause and the second one an effect. And we even then think that this is the case when we don't. If something happens and it's a new thing, or we don't know what made it happen, we still think that there must be something, because it seems that always when something happens, something else has happened before, making it the case that should happen. So what I'm suggesting then is that cause and effect is a way of sorting or categorizing reality. It's a theoretical framework. I have this framework, causes and effects, and I see something happening, and I put this framework onto the world, and I say, here is a regular or lawful connection, because this will happen every time in those circumstances. And it can be at all levels, micro level and macro level, not just particles moving, but maybe saying that doing something embarrassing can cause you to blush, or giving women education can improve the society in different ways, or dehumanization can cause genocide and war, etc. So at all sorts of levels we see these connections, and we say here's the cause and here's the effect. But the effects understood as something moving, something changing in the world, or motion happening, that happens as a result of complex interaction at the micro level. So it's in my terminology, the actualizer actualizing values, or if you don't buy that theory, you could say laws of nature interacting with particles at the micro level. That is what actually makes things move in the world. And of course those laws of nature will take into consideration the certain context where the particles are moving. So for instance, you could have, let's say you have a wheel rolling downhill, then there will be a lot of atoms in that wheel that are connected with the force between the atoms, but you'll also have the gravity pulling the wheel downwards. But describing this together is what explains the motion, and not that causation is its own way of moving things or something like that. Yeah. Different sciences are then useful, even if what makes something move happens at the micro level with laws of nature. Different sciences will reveal a lot of connections that we wouldn't otherwise see, or using if we had just used the theoretical framework for physics, for an example, you could have been, if you want to describe World War II in the theoretical framework of physics, you could describe how a lot of atoms moved around in Europe from 1940 or 39 to 45. But that wouldn't be very helpful, or it would be a lot of interesting things that picture didn't show us. So it's much more interesting in order to understand World War II, to understand colonialism and anti-Semitism and dehumanization and all of the other things going on there at the higher level. So even if that will involve imprecise concepts, imprecise shortcuts, etc., these are useful simplifications that gives us an increased understanding of how things are interrelated, not just at the micro level but also at the macro level. And it gives us possibilities then to maneuver in the world, influence, predict, say, okay, so maybe we should do something to prevent dehumanization, so we can prevent wars like this in the future. Maybe we should have a Declaration of Human Rights, etc. So we need the different sciences, even if what causes things to move happens at the micro level. It also happens in certain contexts, in certain macrostructures, and these are often better described in other sciences. What is then the connection between cause and effect? Well, there's nothing flowing from the cause over to the effect. There isn't this physical process between a cause and effect. Dehumanization isn't a cause and then something moves from dehumanization over to the effect, which is war, for instance. It is the actualization of values in the field at this micro level that creates the motion, things moving around in the world. But calling things cause and effect is an effective way of saying that at the deeper level there is a lawful connection, but it's better and more useful and so on. We understand it better by describing it at a macro level. One objection to this theory I just presented would be to say, well, can't also absences be causes? For instance, Johnson and Schaffer says that me not watering the plant caused the flower to die, would be something we would say in daily life, for instance. But a lack, an absence of a state of affairs is not something that can create motion, but it is a useful thing to clarify how are things connected. Here there was a lack of connection, there wasn't a person watering the flower and so the water died. It helps us to understand and it's useful. Then we can learn that we should water the plant in the future, etc. So in everyday speech it's very useful to call absences also, that something was not present, to say that is a cause. because even often we won't know. Maybe I say something happened in the brain and I don't know if it was an absence of something or a presence of something, because we don't know the details. But if you want to have this philosophical, precise explanation of what makes things move around, as awful people are interested in when they try to understand causation, then we should stick to causes as only present state of affairs then, and describe, say that it's being made true by what happens at the micro level in relation to macro level structures. But it's most useful to categorize it all and to see it as this theoretical framework that we can put on every level, even if it means taking certain shortcuts. I think that's what I wanted to say here about my theory of what it means, that they causes an effect, and then we'll look further into the topic of selection of causes among various candidates, etc., in the next video.